friends, how are you guys doing? Thanks for stopping by for today's video. Today's video is going to kick off how I'm going to try out some content this year. So I'm trying to give you guys like Cliff Note reviews, if that makes any sense. Spark Notes, is that like the new way? Am I aging myself by saying Cliff Notes? In any case, what I'm going to do is give you guys like a monthly wrap up of all the books I read that month. This way, if you just want to hear what I've read, you can just watch one video. So I hope that you guys will like these style of videos and stick around. And to all the new subscribers that I have, thank you so much for being here. I love to share about the romance novels that I read here in my channel. So welcome. And actually in today's video, I have an historical fiction book that I read, and oh wow, that is my second love, romance being my first. I read historical fiction forever. I love being able to read historical fiction, and this one was a new to me author, and oh my gosh. So we're going to start the video today with the historical fiction book, which is The Stolen Twins by Sherry J. Ryan. The Stolen Twins takes place in Hungary, Auschwitz, and then also in France and Chicago. It follows the story of Irina and Nora, which are twins that get taken along with their mother and father from Hungary to Auschwitz. And here's the thing. Like, this is my favorite, one of my favorite time periods to read in historical fiction. I know that sounds strange, but I love history, and this time period to me is so heavy and almost like you cannot believe that this actually happened in our world, and yet it did. And the thing is, it's touchable because this was our grandparents. This was my grandparents. They were alive and having children and living in this world. My dad was born in 1939, so he remembers some things about World War II, but he was young. Oh, it's just, that's the only way I can describe it, is like it's touchable for us. It's so recent. The special connection with this book that I didn't know until after I finished it and read the acknowledgments at the end is that the author has a personal connection to this story, like Auschwitz and having relatives that survived and relatives that died there. So there's something that I feel like really important when I read a World War II story like this, and that is by me reading this book and Sherry writing it makes me feel like I'm doing my part to remember all those people that lost their lives and all the families that were decimated by the hate that was going on in the world at that time. I remember seeing once, and I can't remember now who it was. I tried to remember because I wanted to make sure I noted it, who it was, but I remember seeing somebody's grandmother, one of my friends from high school, I think, or somebody I knew in high school. And I remember that I saw the tattoo of the numbers on her arm, and I was like, and I remember seeing that and being like, oh my God, you know? As I was reading the book, it was really heavy, of course. I had no idea that they did this to twins. It was just a part of the story that I didn't know about. So I learned a lot reading this book. When they get to Auschwitz, they get separated immediately from their parents. And after they get liberated from there, they get sent two different places. Nora gets sent to France and Arita gets sent to Chicago. I immediately wanted to Google to see like if this place that she lived in was actually true, because that would be really cool. In any case, of course, I did write down some of my favorite passages from the book, so I wanted to share those with you. The first one is Irina's perspective. I'm still left wondering how an army of people can wake up one day and decide to hate everyone who doesn't mirror their blonde hair and blue eyes genetic profile. They are cruel human beings who won't accept anyone different from themselves. From the first moment I had to face this inhumane cruelty, I knew I was standing in the center of a collapsing world. And if that isn't incredibly profound, still, almost 100 years later, it hurts my heart. Next one is also from Arena. She's speaking to the woman that runs the orphanage that she's at. Miss, with all due respect, the Nazis tortured me at Auschwitz death camp in Poland for almost a year because I'm Jewish. I've lost my entire family, and now I'm here in the United States by no request of my own, away from everything and everyone I've ever known. With a breath to calm the anger boiling through my chest, I continue. My apologies for being blunt, but should I have passed a mental health examination? And lastly, this is from Nora. We walk or float along for many minutes until we enter a set of iron gates. The landscape comprises pebble-covered roads and short, wide brick buildings. I immediately know, and I've never been there, but I know exactly what she's talking about. I knew where she was going. I've seen pictures of it. She's talking about going into Auschwitz. It's not lost on me that just reading that as an American separated by generations from this, how that affects me now. So I think it's important that we remember. Lastly, I'm going to share that, and this makes me so emotional to even share it, but it's a letter that they receive from their mom. What is it with the letters in books that make me a mess? It never fails to make me cry when I read a letter. It could be the sappiest, sweetest letter in a romance book, and I cry. There's something about a letter, and this is from their mom to them. Look for me in the raindrops and the glow from the sun, lyrics to a song you love, and there you will find me on the other side watching over you. Can you imagine? I can't imagine. I loved this book, and if you're into historical fiction, into reading, period, you will love this book. Okay, the next book I read, let's lift it up a little bit. In January was The Arc for Until August by Emery Rose, Love and Chaos, a book number 3. Woohoo! So excited to be back reading one of Emery's books. You guys know I have read all her books. I've done videos on all of them for my channel. I love her so much and was so excited to read Until August. There's been a little bit of a break. The last book that we had in the Love and Chaos series was, of course, Sweet Chaos, which was Dylan and Scarlett's book. I loved being back with the characters. There's something so special about picking up a book from one of your favorite authors in one of your favorite series ever, and like being back there with another set of characters. I loved it so much. Until August is about August and Nick. Nick is Italian. She's a chef. She's in her middle 30s. August is a chef as well, about the same age. The book starts and, heavy place in the book starts. Until August is about grief and loss. It's about finding your way in a new life, one that you didn't really expect to have. The thing that I really liked about Nick and August is that they're mature. I mean, not that everyone that's in their 30s is mature, but they've lived some life. You know what I mean? August is a single parent trying to get back into his child's life. When the book starts, she's kind of going through something in her personal life that is so sad and made me so sad. It was heart-wrenching. There's a depth to how I connect to Emery's characters, and Nick and August had it. I loved them. There's an epic playlist that, of course, I died because it had one of my favorite songs ever, if not my, okay, fine, it's my favorite song. It's my favorite song. Landside by Fleetwood Mac. I listen to that song and it's like it's talking about me, and I was like 7 years old or something when that song came out, and it's literally stand the test of time. So the fact that it's in this book, and when other authors put it in their books, I'm like, oh my God, see? It was really hard for me to narrow down the moments that I want to share with you, but I tried. So here's the first one, and it's from Nick. I had no idea how to forgive myself or move on. I stayed with him until a new day dawned and this horrible anniversary was over. Until next year, and the year after that, and for all the years that would follow, for as long as his big, strong heart kept beating, always and forever, until death do us part. This one's from August. Whatever she has going through was bad enough that her brother was worried about her. We both needed to turn the tides and find something good to hang on to. What better place to start than in the kitchen? The only place where I felt like I belonged. Cooking had saved me in the past, and I was counting on it to perform another miracle. Emery writes about, because they're both chefs, food. And like I was highlighting food that she was talking about, so I could go look it up because I do not have the most complex or variety of palettes. The next one I have is from Nick. You're okay, Nicola. I've got you. I've got you. It had been so long since anyone said those words to me. I actually believed him. I have this like giddy smile on my face, you guys, because even though these are like heavy moments and like tender moments and stuff, they're not like funny moments. I can't help but smile because that's how much I love the book. And the next couple are from August. He was so freaking swoony. I loved him. Sex without strings attached, that was easy. It was physical, nothing more. But when emotions came into play, it changed the whole ballgame. The key was to not get emotionally involved. Even at this early stage, I wasn't sure that was possible. I already cared about her, worried about her, picked up on her moods, and knew her little tell signs. For F's sake, I even know she had her period last week. The app alerted me when she left her phone next to the coffee machine. I spent most of my waking hours with this woman, working together so closely that I already knew hundreds of little things about her. In short, Nicolo already took up too much real estate in my head. Sex would only exacerbate the problem. I loved him. Yes, it would, and that's what we want, August. The next couple ones that I highlighted showed me the awe from August's perspective of falling in love. And there's something really special that draws me into romance. And I think that's also where I love Emery's words so much, because she never fails to hook me in this way. So again, it's from August. Nobody had ever made me breakfast. Nobody had ever taken care of me. I just couldn't get over it. I didn't know if two broken people could heal each other, but her smile made me believe anything was possible. And then lastly, last week she told me I was good at dealing with her. The same could be said for the way she handled me. Okay, so I know I'm giving you teasers about the books, but like I want to entice you to read them. And you guys know I always love to share my favorite passages. So those were just a couple from Until August. This was my first 5-star read of the year. Totally different than the book we just talked about, which was amazing and I loved so much as well. But when we're talking about romance, Emery just like hits it out of the park every time for me. Next up, I have the arc for Tempting the Neighbor by Ashley Munoz, Mount Macon series. I could not wait to read Coulson and Nora. And let me tell you, I messaged Ashley right after I started and I was like, oh no, he's making my stomach hurt. Coulson's making my stomach hurt. And she was like, I promise he gets better. And I was like, okay. Because you guys know that enemies to lovers is hard for me. And it's just like, I love the tension, but I didn't know Coulson well enough yet. So I wasn't sure about him. Nora is Ray's best friend. We met her in Resisting the Grump, of course. We met Coulson in Resisting the Grump as well. They are next door neighbors, and also Coulson works for Nora's dad. So they're entwined in a way that keeps throwing them in each other's way. So there was great tension. And let me tell you, Coulson did make up for how he hurt my heart in the beginning. One of probably the funniest things I've ever read in a book happened in this book, in that, like I said, they're neighbors and Coulson's not home, but Nora knows that he might leave his back door open and she doesn't have power at her house. So she decides to go sneak into his house. And then she can't help herself. She's chilly, so she gets in the bath to warm up. Like, why would you do that? I mean, she knows Coulson. She's crushing on him big time. But she's like, oh, I'm just going to take a quick bath. And of course he comes home. Oh my God. It was hysterical. So here are some of the highlights that I have from Tempting the Neighbor. The first one is from Nora. This is Coulson talking to her, and this is where I was like, ooh, don't talk to her like that. It means you're young, stubborn, and suffer for no goddamn reason, end up causing more work for those who end up wanting to help you. I never asked you to chop up my tree, I breathed out heavily, feeling my nostrils flare. Coulson smirked, leaning into his doorframe. Pride is an unflattering color on you, Nora. I gave him a sugary sweet smile. Who says it isn't confidence? Nora had confidence in spades on the exterior. On the interior, we knew it was a little different. That she was really trying to be an adult and stand on her own 2 feet. There's more to that in the story, but I loved her for that. I loved that she was like, I'm going to fake it till I make it. Because there's people in her life that think she'll never make it. And she's going to show them. And I love that about her. The next is from Coulson. I had a stupid grin on my face that wouldn't budge, and when I realized Nora had one too, I understood with painful clarity that this was something I'd wanted. Holidays, Christmas cookies, magic cocoa bombs, and damn it if my splintered heart used the image of Nora, placing her in that dream too. Okay, at this point in the book, I was pretty much getting to be all in with him. The next one is from Nora. The silence expanded between us, growing into something we'd never come back from. I could feel it, so I did the only thing I could think of. I think we should just go back now to how things were before you suddenly decided to play savior. Go back to ignoring me and being completely apathetic towards me. I think that was easier. And I'm just going to leave it at that with him. I'm not giving you a spoiler, but let me tell you, at this point in the book, this is chapter 17, I was done for it with Coulson. I loved them. And here's something super exciting. The next book in the series, I'm kind of going back to where I started with Ashley because it's a single dad story. We meet those characters in this book. And she is the first single dad that I ever read. Can you believe it? It's her book Glimmer. Oh my gosh, to this day, Jimmy, just I think about him and I'm like, he's so freaking sweet. And this book, The Single Dad, I'm going to die because there's 3 girls. And so that's the next book. I'm so excited. I can't wait. And I loved Tempting the Neighbor. Rounding up the last book that I read this month, it was an arc for the book Rockstar Cupid by Kay Lee. If you guys remember, I talked about her book that she released. It was a holiday book, and it's all part of the same series, which is the Holiday Hotties series. That book was Sugar Daddy Santa. This book is Rockstar Cupid. I couldn't wait to get this book. I love what she's doing with this series. This book is about Ava and Gavin. It's Rockstar. It's a bit of second chance. I loved how they met. Ava went with one of her friends to a bar. Her friend was like interested in the bouncer, but they're going to go to this bar that he works at because there's a band playing. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll go. And it's really crowded and somebody spills a beer all over her and she's headed to the bathroom and she runs into somebody and he's like, oh, I think you need this more than I do. And so he takes off his hoodie and gives it to her so she doesn't have to walk around smelling like beer. And then she was like, oh, no, that's okay. And he's like, no, 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 it's fine. And then she's like, oh my God, hello. Because he's cute. And she goes and she sits back down and she's sitting there and all of a sudden she looks up and he's on the stage. It was Gavin. He's the lead singer. It was good. I really liked that. There's something really sweet and easy about Kaylee's books. She has just the right amount of spice, just the right amount that really pulls me into her stories, and yet they're sweet. But I don't mean sweet like not spicy, because they're spicy. Like, and especially This is spicy. Something else I really loved about this book, and Kaylee talks about it in her teasers, is sexy time in a yurt and how she talks about the yurt. And it really was sexy. Is she talks about this bookstore that also, like, it's in the front of it, it's a bookstore, but then when you walk through and go to the back, it's a restaurant slash cafe slash bar, and it's open 24 hours. Like, how cool is that? Does that exist? That is really cool. Can I also just say, and this goes for a lot of the books that I read, it is not lost on me how pretty the interior on some of these books are. Obviously, I have paperbacks, right? But we don't often get books printed on the interior in paperbacks in color. It's freaking expensive. So I get it. So here, I'll show you just the beginning of this. So when I read on my phone and I get to see a beautiful interior like that, I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. I wish I read on a Kindle Fire because I think I would see all that, but I read on a paper white at night because it's backlit. But what a nice surprise that is. Anyway, let's get to some of my highlights for Rockstar Cupid. The first one is from Ava's perspective. Ava and Gavin are having a conversation about music and lyrics and stuff like that. They're sitting in that cafe, bookstore slash place, and this is what they're saying back and forth. The liberation, the release of anger, it was so freeing. That's exactly it, Gavin exclaims, his eyes lighting up as he talks. The absence of expectation, the pure emotion. It's just like you can breathe, I sigh. And then a little bit later, this is from Gavin's perspective. Ava's soft laughter echoes in the night air, and when she glances back at me, my heart soars in my chest, as if everything in my life, my lyrics themselves, led me here to this night with her. Okay, right there, I'm like, okay, I like Gavin. And then here's one of the funny parts about the yurt. It's from Gavin's perspective. An effing yurt? That's what the host has booked for me. I have to say it's nice, don't get me wrong. It's got central heat and air and is enclosed, but it's also like see-through for the most part. Like everything except the bedroom and bathroom. But let me also tell you, it's up in the mountains and there's nothing else around but greenery and like nature. And how amazing does that sound? And here's a conversation. Again, it's from Gavin's perspective talking to Ava. Don't make your feelings smaller to accommodate someone else. Please, regardless of what it is, it'll hurt your feelings, and that's valid. We all have a right to how we feel. She stares at my lips as I talk, and it unnerves me a bit. It's as if she's soaking up every word, almost as if I'm singing to her. It goes on. Your words always bring me comfort, she whispers, closing her eyes slowly. I reach over and take the spatula from her, setting it down on the counter. Then I turn the stove off before I pull her into my arms. She melts into me immediately, which is surprising. I thought she'd be hard, like her expressions, but she's soft and warm, and I wrap around her like I was born to do so. She sniffles against my shoulder, and I squeeze her tighter. We're virtually strangers, but years ago we had a genuine connection. That night goes on and gets quite steamy. And this is from Ava. And she says, a quick, dirty F with a beautiful man under the stars. What more could a girl ask for? The pleasure builds inside my core, my whole body coming alive as I reach for that feeling that's all too familiar. But something is also different this time. Maybe it's the way Gavin submits to me. And then a little bit later, his gentle touch softens my heart. My tough act from before has dissolved into warm butterflies. Shit, that wasn't part of the plan. And then one of the sweetest things I've read in a long time, and this is where I love how Kaylee like gives that level of intimacy that's so real in her books. Gavin brings Ava something special because he listened to her. You know what I mean? So this is from Gavin's perspective. The comfort she feels with me, to be herself and relax, that's worth more than all the album sales in the world. And a little bit later, she's not feeling great. And Gavin says, white chocolate covered pretzels, cashews, cheese balls, ice cream sandwiches, and a very hard to come by box of Christmas tree cakes, I say, handing her each thing, and some Midol, bottled water, and a heating pad. Okay, you know where I'm going there, right? I mean, if your significant other pays enough attention to your favorite snacks, what you want when you have your period, and like brings them to you, I mean, hello, that's like worth their weight in gold. I'm so excited to read more in this series. They are novellas, I believe. So the next book that will be released this year, which is supposed to come out in June, is Sparks with a Single Dad. And then in September, we have My Ex, the Pumpkin King. So I love the tie-in to the holidays that she's bringing with this little series. I would highly recommend her books. I hope you got some great recommendations and you enjoyed this style of video. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about in the video. You know I always love to hear. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye!